Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to my channel. Now today's video is about offline navigation systems. And why am I making this video? Well, the first thing is that I've seen a lot of people who are not aware of offline GPS navigation systems. They think that apps like Google Maps, Waze, or the navigation systems provided in their vehicles are more than enough for them to navigate their way out of outback. This is not true. There would be 10% of the times when your navigation systems will misguide you, not because they want to do it, but because they're designed to take you through a safer route, and they would actually end up suggesting a route which is 300 kilometers more than an actual shortcut that you could have taken. However, there are times when they actually go wrong, and I'll cover those instances where they actually went wrong when I was driving through the outback. And the second reason is that there are a lot of off-road and offline navigation dedicated devices that you can buy off the shelf, but they are pretty expensive. Something like Garmin Overlander or HEMA HX2. The price is not justified for someone who is just doing 2 or 3 trips in a year. The pros and cons of online and offline navigation. So the first difference is offline navigation system depends on GPS navigation, so it doesn't need internet at all. And for all the people who say that Google Maps and Waze are the best apps, no doubt that they are pretty good, they are best apps. I use Google Maps all the time, but when I'm going out back, I always carry an alternative that is more reliable in outback conditions. The biggest benefits of using Google Maps or any other online system is that they are very intuitive and easy to use. The search results are fairly good with user ratings. You can see what all restaurants or pubs are better as compared to the others in the area. The real-time updates are good. They're constantly improving and they're free of cost. But the cons are they always require internet. And people who say that, oh, you can download the offline maps and you'll be able to use it offline, well, it's not true. You can even do a practical yourself. Online maps are not for advanced users because it will lack a lot of information on the tracks, which is pretty much similar to the point above that I've said about satellite imagery, is because these maps will not show you where the roads are sealed, unsealed, or whether they are suitable for a 4-wheel drive or a 2-wheel drive, what's the elevation of the road, and the worst of all is that you can't create routes in advance and you can't even have GPX files. So if you've done a route, you can't save that GPX file and share it with your friends or with a convoy. So without wasting much time, let's move on to Osmand. So when I talk about Osmand, I'm talking about these guys over here, where we can use the Android version or the iOS version of the app. Unfortunately, they don't have a web version and they don't have a desktop version as well. So if you need to access this app on your desktop, then you need to use BlueStacks, which is an Android emulator. So once you install BlueStacks, you need to install Osmand as you would install on your handheld or a tablet device, and once you install it, you can simply access it by this icon. So in this video I'm going to talk about the features of Osmand, and in the next couple of videos I'll talk about how I plan long travels and how I plan day trips. But if you think that I need to cover anything extra, then feel free to comment and I'll try to cover those parts specifically rest of the videos. But I'm trying to keep it short so that instead of making one full 1 hour video, I just make 10 minutes video of each of the sections of this application. And once again, I just repeat, this is a personal preference. You can use any other app that you would want to use, but the main idea of this video is to create awareness about offline GPS navigation. So this is this is a big recommendation that whenever you plan a trip, places where you don't have internet, try to use the GPS applications that do not rely on internet and get used to using these. You can also try to use 2 or 3 at the same time, because you can install those apps on your phone, which hasn't got any limitation on the number of apps that you use. So these things come really handy when you are out in the outback and one of the routes is now closed because of flood, and now you cannot take that route. So all of a sudden you need to search for an alternate route and you don't have internet. So make sure that you carry at least one of these offline maps that will help you out in such situations. So to cover the features, the first thing that you need to do when you install Osmand is that you need to download maps for your area. So I think for the free version you can only download a few maps. I think you can still download all Australian maps, but it's just the overlay tiles that you can't download in a free version, which still works fine, because we are talking about navigation, we are not talking about advanced stuff like altitude or elevation and all that sort of stuff. So based on your region, based on your location, you can download the maps and you can almost start using it. You can configure the profile, you can add places that you like. So for example, if you zoom in and if you think there's a place of interest that you would want to visit, you can just add a flag, you can see that place. You can search for addresses, but I really don't use this feature a lot because it's not reliable, and that means that the search here is very old-fashioned. It's like those navigation units where you need to first enter the city, then you need to enter the street, and then the house number and so on. So this is not as intuitive as it should be. Directions is something which is self-explanatory, and you can configure map. Now this is pretty interesting. You can have various point of interest overlays. So at the moment it's disabled, but when you enable it, you can have charging stations or charging points, petrol stations. So for example, you saw that I enabled charging stations. So if you own an electric vehicle, you can see that you have these charging stations and you can plan your trip accordingly based on that. We have mostly used things like filling station and sightseeing. So if you are planning a longer trip or a shorter trip, you can see where you can fuel at. So for example, if you're going somewhere, you can take Dalby as the first stop to refuel. You can take Roma as the second stop, and then Malvern. So if you're going towards Mount Isa, you know where you would find a fuel stop and in what distances you will not have any fuel stop at all. So this comes pretty handy. And places of interest as well. So a lot of people go to websites and search for things like what to do in Quilpie, places to see in Quilpie, or places of interest and all that sort of stuff. So apart from looking at that information from the websites, you can also look at this information. So all these marks here are places of interest where you can actually go and visit during your travels. There are a few additional things as well. So you can have tracks. So when you create a track, which I'll talk about in the next video, you can show or hide those tracks. So for example, I previously created a route from Brisbane to Noosa, and if I show that track, it will highlight the track on the map over here. So if it gets too busy, you can simply disable the point of interest overlay, and you can see that this is the route and these are the waypoints that I had on my graph. There are other options for map configuration. I've set the map source to default. I haven't touched these settings at all. But yeah, if you're a really advanced user, you can change these. Planner route is pretty much similar or slightly more advanced than directions, because in planner route you can create a new route and you can simply just draw the route on the map, and when you're done, it will just create a route. It will save the GPX file, and you can use that file to travel that route. But I generally go to directions and I select the waypoints manually. I click on add destination and I keep on adding the waypoints, and I just then save that GPX file to save the route. And I'll talk about creating routes, creating tracks in detail in the next couple of videos. So hang on if you need to look at that information. Now, there are a lot of options to configure your screen. So when you are driving, there are a few things that you can see on the right hand corner and the left hand corner of your screen. So you can play around with these settings. I generally prefer to see the time and the distance for the intermediate destination and for the final destination, and I have enabled altitude and the number of satellites that are available. So if my satellites go below 3 or 4, then I know that I'm in really remote area. I've never seen them going below 4, by the way, but most of the times it will have like 22 satellites available for you. So that's a pretty good indication on how powerful the signal is and how accurate your map is at the time of your drive. You can also go to settings and try to configure additional profiles if you want. For example, if you are towing a van, which is similar to a truck, then you select the profile which will take you through a route which is more suitable for trucks or bigger vans, so that you are not going through a very high level of change elevation or a very big slope, which is really safe as compared to another routes. So that's pretty much for this video, and in the next video I'm going to talk about planning of routes and saving of GPX files and sharing with friends. And if you need to see something else or any other information that you're looking for, or any other questions that you have regarding Osmand, then feel free to add that in your comments, and I will try to address those in my next video. Thanks a lot for watching. See you guys again.